Have you ever tried to assemble something, maybe something complex, without the instructions? Just sort of randomly putting pieces together?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Doesn't usually end well.
Exactly. Well, today we're doing something a bit like that, a fascinating linguistic experiment, actually.
Right.
We're diving into 7 randomly selected verses from, well, one of the world's most revered philosophical texts, the Bhagavad Gita.
Wow, okay. Just plucked out a sequence.
Completely random, and our mission really is to explore what happens. You know, when you disrupt that deliberate order of profound wisdom like this, does meaning somehow magically reappear, or does it just dissolve into, well, what some people call a word salad?
Right, and the Bhagavad Gita, it's foundational for Hinduism, isn't it? It's such a core text.
Absolutely.
It's celebrated for its deep philosophical conversation, the one between Lord Krishna and the warrior Arjuna, right, on a battlefield.
That's the one.
And it's really known for its, well, meticulous unfolding of themes, its coherence. There's a clear story arc.
Yeah.
Understanding that inherent structure is just.
Yeah.
It's absolutely critical if we want to grasp what happens when we intentionally, break it apart like this.
Okay, so let's unpack that a bit, because here's where it gets really interesting, I think. Each one of these 7 verses, if you take it just on its own, holds really profound meaning.
Oh, individually, for sure.
Yeah, like there's one where Krishna explains Maya, the divine illusion, teaching that the material world isn't the ultimate reality.
A huge concept.
Huge. Or you've got Arjuna facing this terrible ethical dilemma, right?
Yeah.
About fighting his own family, his kinsmen. These are incredibly powerful statements in isolation.
They really are. And what's fascinating here is that even though each verse is, like I said, profound and it's grammatically perfectly sound on its own,
Right.
when we randomly jumble them up, they just completely disrupt the original text's narrative flow. And the systematic development of ideas, that's gone too.
So the structure falls apart.
Completely.
Yeah.
So as a new text, this compilation, it functions as a word salad. Now, not gibberish, let's be clear.
Okay, important distinction.
Yes, not nonsense words.
Uh-huh.
But it completely lacks a new, coherent, overarching message that emerges from this, well, arbitrary sequence. Think of it maybe like trying to understand a company's financial health by randomly reading single lines from its quarterly report.
Okay, yeah.
A revenue figure here, a liability mentioned there, without the structured balance sheet, the P&L narrative. Those numbers just become kind of meaningless data points, right?
Right, they don't give you the full picture, not true insights.
Exactly.
So just to be crystal clear then, it's not that the individual pieces, the verses, are broken. It's the relationship between them that's shattered.
Precisely. You've hit the nail on the head. Consider this really vivid example from the selection we looked at.
Okay.
You have Arjuna's deep moral despair in verse 136. He's questioning, is it right to kill my own relatives?
A huge moment.
Massive.
Yeah.
And then immediately following it in our random list is verse 1023, where Krishna has these cosmic revelations. He's identifying himself as like the supreme essence among mountains or gods.
Wow, talk about a jump cut.
Exactly. There's no narrative bridge, no argument building. It's just this abrupt jolt from, intense human crisis straight to divine declaration.
I see that. So even if 2 randomly chosen verses might seem like they touch on related ideas, say, human struggles with desire in one and maybe divine solutions in another.
Right. Like, for instance, we saw lust described as this insatiable fire in 339, and then elsewhere in 714, this idea of transcending Maya through surrender to the divine. Related concepts, maybe?
Yeah, it seems related.
But their random placement just creates a juxtaposition, a kind of, oh, here's this idea and here's that idea. It doesn't build anything.
It doesn't build a systematic argument.
Exactly. Or a progressive understanding of a theme. Not like how the original Gita so carefully systematically develops its whole theological framework and the path for the spiritual journey.
Right. So what does this really tell us then? It sounds like this random selection, it effectively dismantles that carefully crafted structure of the original text.
It really does.
Proving that maybe the intelligent design and how information is presented is crucial.
Absolutely. I think this deep dive powerfully underscores that critical role of, well, authorial intent, the original context, and definitely the structural integrity in conveying meaning.
Right.
Meaning isn't just adding up the individual parts, It's an emergent property. It arises from how those parts relate, their sequence, their interconnection.
And that feels like it applies way beyond just ancient texts, doesn't it?
Oh, for sure.
I mean, this experiment highlights that true understanding, whether you're talking about a complex report for work or a philosophical idea, or even just trying to understand different views in a debate, it requires engaging with the original design, right? And the deliberate choices that went into creating it. You can't just pick and choose bits randomly and expect to get it.
Well said. It really emphasizes the importance of context and sequence.
Yeah.
Which leads to maybe a provocative thought for you, for everyone listening.
Okay, let's hear it.
What complex text is there in your own life? Maybe it's a series of experiences you've had or pieces of advice you've collected over time, or even just how you consume news headlines.
Interesting.
Might any of those reveal a deeper, maybe more coherent meaning if you consciously went back and re-examined the original context, the intended sequence, the connections?
That's a great question. Looking for the original structure in the randomness of life experiences or information.
Something to mull over, perhaps, until our next deep dive.